Authentic. Authentic is the best word to describe this movie. As a lifelong fan of this character, this has got to be the most accurate interpretation I have seen on screen. For a while now, I have considered Batman Begins to not only be my favorite Batman movie, but was almost close to considering it as my favorite movie of all time. I don't know if I still feel this way after seeing this, but only time will tell. Let me just get right down to it, the positive stuff out the way right now. This movie really captures the detective aspects of the character that we have rarely have seen in the previous films. There are hints of it here and there, but they don't go full blown to it in a way that I have seen it being portrayed here. This Batman is a detective through and through. Batman as a character has been labeled as the world's greatest detective. Yet none of the movies that we have seen prior to this never really go full in depth on that detective side. This really captures that detective aspects. I mean, this is a detective story after all, and then they just did it masterfully. This truly feels like the world's greatest detective aspects of the character being ripped out of the page and being brought to the screen. Robert Pattinson really embodies the character in a way that makes you really believe that he sees himself as the masked vigilante. Perhaps the best way to describe it is that this is a Batman who sees the Batman persona as his true persona, and the Bruce Wayne is a facade. Now, another theme about Batman is that is basically what I just said, is that in a lot of stories it's about that Batman is the true face, while Bruce Wayne, the billionaire playboy, is the mask. This kind of brings into some of the criticisms that people have with his performance, and that is that he is a great Batman, but he's not that good of a Bruce Wayne, as he is pretty much as he kind of goes what Michael Keaton did, and that he is pretty much playing him the exact same way as he would. He's playing his Bruce Wayne persona in the same way as he does when he's in the suit. I think I like it in the context of the way it's being played here. I think it works a little better here. And yeah, I do agree on that trope that he does not bring up the playboyness, but I like it in a way it's being handled. In that he's very cut off. I think they go more. I think they explore more in depth into why it is he plays it in a way that he does. The long hair thing, yeah, I do kind of agree is a bit distracting, but that doesn't. But that's kind of a minor thing, and it does kind of bring us to the point that we don't see a lot of him as Bruce Wayne, as this is very much, and this is kind of why I say this feels like it brings more of the detective side, is that this is a movie that is more about the bat than it is about the man himself. Now, what exactly do I mean by this? Well, in Batman Begins, it's more about the man, Bruce Wayne, on his journey to becoming the bat. This is more Batman centric than it is Bruce Wayne centric, if that makes any sense. Because throughout the movie, he is going on his work, doing his job as a detective. And that's why I consider it more of a Batman story than it is a Bruce Wayne story. The architecture is astounding. This is probably the best looking Batman movie I've seen. Like for a while now, I have said to myself that Tim Burton's Batman is the best looking Batman movie, but this could beat it. I really get Arkham vibes whenever I look into this city. Like there is so much that makes me feel right at home whenever I play like the Arkham games of such. Like this is a beautiful looking Gotham in a very more twisted sort of way. I really love this Gotham. I feel right at home whenever I look at it. The supporting cast is also very spot on. Like I really love Jeffrey Wright's Gordon, and the dynamic that he has with Batman, which again kind of gives me a bit of the Arkham vibes here. I would say that his relationship is close to being on par with Christian Bale and Gary Oldman's versions of the characters. Zoe Kravitz is a wonderful Catwoman. I believe that it is without question that her relationship with Batman is by far the best I have seen on screen. Again, just feels like it's just ripped right out of the comics. Colin Farrell completely disappears as the Penguin. I mean, you could have fooled me, but wow, they really did a masterful job of Colin Farrell in that makeup. Like, I cannot recognize that is Colin Farrell in there. I mean, just a splendid job. Like, the way they did it is just, it's great. I mean, that's all that's. Andy Serkis is a good Alfred, but again, because we don't spend a lot of time with Bruce Wayne, there wasn't enough to fully develop their relationship. There is one scene with them that I won't get too far into, but yeah, that displays the type of relationship is. But again, there isn't enough of that, and it does make me want to hopefully see a sequel, a follow-up later down the line, just to fully flesh out that relationship. Paul Daniel, I do like his Riddler. This is what I mean. Let's face it. This is the first Riddler we've seen since Jim Carrey in 1995, and yeah, I mean, by this point, he is the best incarnation we have seen, and it's kind of an interesting take. I mean, I'm not too familiar with the Riddler's backstory. I know that there's different backstories here and there, with the animated series version being the one that I am most familiar with. Okay, aside from Batman Forever. I guess it is only the appearance that kind of throws me off, because aside from that, I actually do enjoy his performance. I would say I do have to watch the film a couple more times to fully grasp on his motivations in order to make it sound clear in my conscience. If there is a criticism to be had, I would say that this is a movie that should not be sold to children. And the reason why I'm saying this is because they are marketing toys at Walmart that kids are obviously going to buy, and then I find this rather ridiculous. Now there are people that's gonna call this foul because the same thing happened to the Nolan movies, and they sold those movies to children as well. But honestly, I think kids are better off watching those movies. First off, it's 3 hours long. I think kids are definitely gonna get bored by this. Also, I think the overall presentation isn't gonna sit right with children. Honestly, I think this movie is close enough to be considered an R rating just because of that presentation alone. This is by far the darkest Batman movie I have seen up to this point. Now, as many of you know, I just recently posted a review of the DC Multiverse figures, but I believe that those figures are made for the older adult collectors. Even though it says 12 plus in it, I do believe it's more for an older demographic than for the young children involved. Overall, all I can say is that there's not a lot. I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, Then again, I just saw it one time, so overall it's already souring to me. And then again, usually I don't go to a theater the second time. I usually wait until it comes out on video, on DVD and such like that, or when it comes into streaming services. Yeah, but as of this point, like I said, Batman Begins was my favorite. This could top it at some point in time. I don't know, but just by the sheer look, the way it's being presented, this is by far, the best, interpretation I've seen on screen. I'm just gonna say it. The Batman is Batman. That's the best word to describe it. This is the true, definitive take I've seen on the character. And as being a fan of it, I feel pleased. This just feels like the Batman movie that many of us fans were wanting to see for years now, And yeah, it's really good. I think it's that good.